It is Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. You know, that dude from the Talking Giants world, Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose. Producer Mikey is along for the ride as well. I thought maybe you were going to move to Mobile. You enjoyed it so much for the Senior Bowl. You're back, though.
Yes, I am back. It's, again, my home away from home, but now I'm back in the office, ready to roll. It's Super Bowl week. Let's get it on.
So we decided to do the show Tuesday instead of Monday because they had opening night where both teams get a chance to chop it up with the 6,000 media members or whatever ridiculous number is there in Las Vegas. They each got an hour. The AFC champion Chiefs went first. Then the San Francisco 49ers went second. And Patrick Mahomes was asked about the magic carpet ride of one Brock Purdy.
Usually when you can make it happen in college, no matter what your surroundings are, and to turn around a program like he did in Iowa State, you're going to make it happen when you get your opportunity in the NFL. So I wasn't very surprised whenever he's had the success that he's had.
Classy as always, Pat Mahomes. I thought he was great for the full hour. So what is the more interesting story over the next week? That Patrick Mahomes is trying to win a third Super Bowl ring by the age of 28, or that Brock Purdy is going from the last pick in the 2022 draft to perhaps the top of the mountain?
Well, I think it depends on the next 10 years of Brock Purdy's career to decide how important this is, the Purdy story is. To me, it's Mahomes. I'm a fan of like teams being great, right? I like watching great teams. I'm not like a fanboy of them or anything, but I like to look back and be like, hey, man, let's think about that team and the different iterations and Patrick Mahomes and the fact that he's chasing Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady, who's done something, he's won more Super Bowls than any team has,
Mm-hmm.
7. That he actually has a chance of getting pretty damn close to that, having 3 this early in his career.
Yeah, but just think about it for a second. We make it sound like, well, of course he can get to 7. Do you know how hard it is to get 1? Because the following players don't have 1. Josh Allen has never appeared there. He's been pretty good over his 6 seasons. Joe Burrow got to 1, but, didn't win it. Lamar Jackson is about to be a 2-time MVP in a couple of days. He hasn't even gotten a 1. So the fact that I think we were just like, oh my God, he's going to win 6, 7, and he might, but I don't think that we're looking at his journey and being impressed by it at all, because we always have to say, well, Tom Brady's got 7. The fact that the dude already has 2 by age 28 and could have 3 by age 28 is ridiculous on itself.
Oh, well, he's like easy, like top 5 of all time, like trajectory, like easy, right? And then probably top 2. And that's why I think it's such a great story, is we are witnessing, the greatest quarterback of this generation, right? Tom Brady, is gone. Patrick Mahomes is undoubtedly the greatest of this generation. Like it's hard to forecast anybody coming into the league and even being close to this. He's been, he's won the MVPs. He's won in different styles, right? And I think that's what great quarterbacks do, is defenses adjust, right, to try and stop those great quarterbacks, and he adjusts too. Where in the beginning of the career, it was throwing bombs all over the place, and now, he throws the ball shorter than most quarterbacks in the NFL. Has one of the lower, average depths of target because of the way defenses play him, and he's still able to be great. So that's why I'm all in on like the Patrick Mahomes storyline. It's like, man, we are truly witnessing not, a really goodness, but greatness. We're gonna look back at this career and look at it as one of, if not the best of all time.
Very quickly, I don't want to move on without at least touching on the Purdy angle here. I think a lot of people in recent times have been like, stop insulting him by calling him Mr. Irrelevant. It's not an insult. It's part of his story. Like, part of the whole Brady chain of events was the fact that he was picked number 199, and he used that. At NFL Network, we did an entire show, an entire, forget what it was, what it fell under, the title of the show, but on the 6 or 7 quarterbacks that were taken ahead of him in the draft class of 2000, guys like Spurgeon Wynn. We did an entire
The Brady 6, right?
yeah, it was the Brady 6 or 7, whatever the hell it's called, right? And so that was part of it. This isn't insulting. I think it's a remarkable feat that a guy went from the last pick of the draft to maybe kissing the Lombardi in 5 days.
Absolutely. And I truly think how the next 10 years of his career, once that maybe that he's not surrounded by all, it's unfortunate for Purdy, but he is going to be judged, but like, hey, he's behind like one of the best play callers in the NFL, who's gotten the most out of guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're surrounded by all pros at every single position. So he's not going to get the credit that Patrick Mahomes gets or other quarterbacks get.
Nor should he, by the way.
No, no, yeah, I
and that's
agree.
fine because
But if
Patrick,
if he's able to sustain the success once maybe some of that, talent goes away, then I think it'll be a much bigger story talking about his career. And I love Mr. Irrelevant, by the way, too. Every year I memorize who Mr. Irrelevant is because I always want to remember. This last year was Desjuan Johnson out of Toledo. I actually had a tackle for a loss versus the Giants. Brock Purdy, Grant Stewart from Houston, he was on the Bucks, and then Tay Crowder from the Giants.
Do you know the two other Mr. Irrelevants who have played in a Super Bowl?
Gonna guess.
I mean, you're never gonna get one of them. So
Grant Stewart, I think, was he on the Bucks that year?
There was a guy on the Bucks a couple of years ago, and he played a prominent role. Ryan Suckup.
Oh, I knew it was the kicker from the Titans, right?
I think he was either drafted by the Titans or I forget who he was drafted by. It was not the Bucks, but he ended up playing and winning one with the Bucks. The other guy is a reserve, kind of a special teamer, a guy named Marty Moore. He played in Super Bowl 31 with the Patriots, did not win there against the Packers, but then was on the Patriots in Super Bowl 36, although he was on injured reserve. But he didn't get a ring. So there you go.
There we go, Marty Moore.
Yep.
We need more Marty.
In the meantime, Chris Jones might be playing his final game as a Kansas City Chief this coming Sunday. He is unquestionably the leader of a very young and very talented defense. Now, Jones said at the beginning of his run that the Chiefs were everybody's darling. Everybody loved him, but now something has changed.
Everybody used to love us. We used to be one of the most favorite teams. Now everybody is like, we're ready for the Chiefs to lose. I don't know what changed or what dramatic incidents happened to where everybody felt like we should lose now, but it's okay. They can continue hating.
When did this happen?
Well, the Chiefs are still probably the most beloved team, but they're now the most hated team. So I think there's three factors. I think 20% of the nation calls Travis Kelce Mr. Pfizer. That's one. The Taylor Swift angle. And then what do we do with great players when it's hard to find weaknesses in Patrick Mahomes? They always complain to the refs. And then Patrick Mahomes losing his mind on that Kadarius Toney offsides thing was the first time where it's like, man, this is really like a horrible look for you. Like, you look silly and immature right now. So it's the refs and team people just kind of hate greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't like to see sustained greatness. So it's the Taylor Swift Kelce thing, and then just Mahomes complain about the refs too much.
That's interesting. I would never have pegged the Travis Kelce Pfizer thing at certainly not at 20%. I imagine that there's some that think whatever they want to think. I don't really.
I'm just saying I've heard people refer to him as Mr. Pfizer. So.
Yeah, I think when he came out with that, but I think that kind of has dissipated over time. But I suppose it's possible that some people still begrudge him for that. Whatever. Yeah, I would say I would agree with your last point the most, I think, which is for the first time we saw Patrick Mahomes in a different light this year. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been upset. I think the Kadarius Toney play was the culmination of several weeks of frustration where guys left and right, it felt like there were 5 or 6 drop passes a game. Now, I know that number, it wasn't close to that number, but it felt like critical times that Mahomes would make a play, and he's like, I would just go back to Giselle. Well, he can't fucking throw it and catch it. So that's kind of what I felt like. And really, for the first time you saw Mahomes, you're like, what is that expression that he's doing?
Yeah, and Mahomes is a bad like shit talker and stuff. So when you accumulate like that with the complaining about the refs, it's just I really just think it comes down to as simple as this: is we hate teams that are sustained great, like the Warriors. Mm-hmm. Everyone loved I love the Warriors coming up right before they were in the NBA Finals. Curry and Clay were so much fun to watch. They win a title, that's cool, and then they add Kevin Durant, and they're the most hated team. LeBron with the Lakers, the Patriots with the Brady, right? So They've given the referee complaining about the referees too much has given people an in on hating them. They haven't done anything like the Spygate or anything where people could just, try and
Right.
call them a cheater or whatever. But I don't think it's over the top, like hate either. Like I still think they're the
Well,
most beloved team in the NFL too.
it was interesting last night. I mean, there were 30,000 people inside of Allegiant Stadium to watch a bunch of people talk, and it was a lot of boos when right? When Mahomes was introduced, he was like, okay, bring it on, Niners fans, we're ready. And Kelsey was like, fuck it, let's go play football right now. I'm ready. I love getting booed. I like boos more than I like cheers. And maybe part of that is that it's in Las Vegas and the Raiders and Chiefs, from what I hear, don't like each other. Maybe part of it is that the Niners contingent arrived in Vegas early because Chiefs fans are going to travel to Vegas this weekend. I mean, it's not going to be 70-30 like when the Niners play down at SoFi Stadium against the Rams.
Well, they're the team that can book early now, right? Like they feel like they can book their trips early, and but like, hey, if they don't make it, we'll save some money. But there's a good chance our team's there, so they're booking their tickets in like April, where every other team has to wait till last second.
Interesting. All right, let's get to a little game talk. We'll do much more on Friday's show as we really get you set and kind of do a deep dive into the X's and O's for Super Bowl 58. But is it more important for the Chiefs defense to remain elite like it's been all season, and particularly here in the playoffs, or for the Niners to clean up the mess on that side of the ball that they were in January in the postseason?
I think it's for the 49ers, right? Because the 49ers, who me and you loved during the regular season, even when they lost 3 games in a row, we're like not worried at all. They've played sloppy football in their 2 playoff games and had to, have comeback victories in both those. And that's going to be a lot harder to do, when it's Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the field and not Jared Goff or Jordan Love. So to me, it's the 49ers have to clean it up, because if they clean it up, get their opening script right, which they've done all year, they can be up, 14-3 earlier in this game and be able to just continually put, points here and there as the game goes along. So I think the 49ers, we have not seen them play their best football in the playoffs yet. And they're still in the Super Bowl, which should be, have 49ers fans a little excited.
It was interesting. We both mentioned that after the Niners won the NFC Championship, that it was more relief than joy and elation. And I think it's because they knew they got away with at least one, if not 2. They needed a game-saving drive by Brock Purdy in the divisional round against Green Bay. They needed a miraculous 17-point comeback against Detroit to end up winning that game. Part of the problem is that this defense against the run has been leaking oil. They are giving up 70 more yards per game on the ground in the playoffs than they did in the regular season. They were top 5, allowing less than 90 yards per game. Here, it's more than 155, I believe, per game. It's insane what has gone on, and I don't know if Steve Wilks can figure this out. And more importantly, if Andy Reid does go back to running the football, then this is something that could be a real problem come Sunday.
Which is new for the 49ers, because remember the thing was like they hadn't had a 100-yard rusher on them in 27 years. So it'd be interesting to see what Reid is able to draw up, because if there's anyone you don't want to give 2 weeks of prep to, it is Andy Reid, because he's going to find weaknesses and take advantage of it. I think of the Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney touchdowns in the Super Bowl last year versus Philly. And then obviously Mahomes and Kelsey are going to do their thing. So that's why I picked the 49ers before the season. That's kind of why I kind of like the Chiefs a little more, is I like Andy Reid way more than I do Steve Wilks. I don't view Steve Wilks as a good – I think he hasn't really done a good job with that defense. The defense has a lot of talent, and they underperform at times, and I put that on Wilks.
Well, look at their last 2 defensive coordinators, right? You go back a few years before he got the Jets job. Robert Saleh, as this team was kind of growing up, boy, they were balling, and he was just boundless energy on the sidelines. Then they went to DeMeco Ryans after that. They were like, let's give him a shot. We know that he's a young coach, but he was a damn good player, and we think he's a great communicator. And sure enough, he nailed that role before moving on to Houston. And now Steve Wilks, who actually did the best job of any Carolina coach in recent years when he took on an interim role a season ago and had them competitive and winning some games, has not really found his footing in this role. And it's weird because I think Steve Wilks has been known as a solid coordinator, He didn't get enough of a shot as a head coach, 1 year and out in Arizona and then an interim label in Carolina. But this defense, and in particular the front four, not only just against the run, but they haven't applied enough pressure because they do not like to blitz, unlike the Chiefs, who are like top 6 in blitz percentage. They will not come at you. And I wonder if there's going to be any sort of adjustment this week with that.
And they've always been a team that doesn't blitz, but they've been able to generate a lot of pressure within those blitzes and throw some disguise looks in the coverage while, like using Fred Warner and Hufanga to their strengths, right? Which is being able to make plays. They just kind of have had those guys in some just typical, drop back, spot drop defenses, where in past years they would really, throw quarterbacks for a loop. Now it's not as much. They still do some stuff. So I don't think that defense is very well structured, and I just trust Reed way more. I don't even know how we got into this, but I'm loving it.
Well, it's interesting because you do break it down. It's Reed against Wilkes, and it's Shanahan against Spags. By the way, Spags, I was reading this in our NFL Network research. He can become the first 4-time Super Bowl champion defensive coordinator in the history of the sport. Pretty good.
I love Spags. It'd be interesting to see if he ever starts to get head coaching interests ever again. Obviously, it went horrible with the Rams. But this defense is a big reason. Like they're just as much as a reason as they're in this as the offense, right? If not more so. And Spags has always been a big game coordinator with the Giants and now the Chiefs. There's the linebacker coach for the Chiefs, Brendan Daly. He's won 5 of the last 9 Super Bowls, and this will be his 8th time in 10 years being in the Super Bowl.
Stories.
He was with the Patriots. He was with the Patriots and Brady, and then immediately jumped over to the Chiefs afterwards. The guy lives at the Super Bowl.
I love that. And some of those guys, they're the glues. You never know what these position coaches do behind the scenes. Like, what does a position coach really do? Because we know about the coordinators and what they're doing with the game plans and everything else. Like, what makes a good position coach in the NFL? I would love to find that out.
Me too, because it's one of those things when you cover a team, it's like you want to judge the position coach when a position is underperforming from where guys are drafted for stuff, like, especially the offensive line coach. But a lot of times it's hard to find out exactly what's going on, and unless you have a connection with some of the players back, and you don't really know. And sometimes players are a bad judge of what a good coach is too. So.
By the way, it's all about technique, Bobby. It's all about technique on this show.
Fundamentals. Listen up, football fans. This is the last weekend of the year to get your football bets in. We've teamed up with DraftKings, and now is the perfect time to take your shot at the crown. Right now, all new customers get $200 in bonus bets instantly when they place their first $5 bet on anything. So download the DraftKings app now and use promo code football today. Wondering what you can use your $200 in bonus bets on? Combine multiple bets together from Super Bowl 58 for a shot at an even bigger payout. If you're already signed up for DraftKings, like me, you can make a bet on Super Bowl 58 and get a bonus bet back. Get a bonus bet in the amount of your initial wager. Max reward varies. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use promo code football today. Bet just $5 on a wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code football today. Only one word. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You'll be glad you did.
All right, let's have fun with this one. You only have one seat in either a game booth or on a pregame show or postgame show desk open. You can give it to a tight end from either team, Travis Kelce or George Kittle. Who you giving it to if you're one of these big wig television executives?
I'm going to give it to Travis Kelce because I think he's kind of a little bit of does both. Like, he can have fun. He had that dating show way back in the day. His podcast does really well with his brother. But also, what he does on a football field is special. And not just like, oh, he's bigger and stronger, makes plays. Him and Patrick Mahomes freestyle. And that sounds good. That is so hard to do and get on the same page with that type of stuff and know, hey, man, if I see this, I'm not running the route that we run. Luke Kuechly actually had a good clip talking about this, but it's something we've talked about before. They truly freestyle on offense, and that type of his mind is just as important as athleticism and his ability to go up and make a tough catch. That I think he'd be great. Where he's got experience being an entertainer with his podcast and his old TV show, but also like the way he sees the game is not just, big fun tight end. Like he really gets it.
I'm gonna go with Kittle here. Not just to be different. I really believe that Kittle is a guy who has untapped potential. Now, I was when I was writing these questions, my wife overheard me and she goes, "Isn't he just going to go right to the wrestling afterward?" And I was like, "You could be onto something." Like he loves wrestling. He even said it last night to the 11-year-old reporter Jeremiah, and it's why he said that Kelsey was funnier or whatever. He goes, "I'm basically two things. I'm wrestling and shoes. Travis is more diverse. I'm not. I think he's playing coy there. I really do, because I think he could be a superstar. I think he's way smarter than he gives off. So I think that he could break down football a little bit like Olsen has the last couple of years on Fox. But he is hilarious. And one thing he does great, better than almost any player active in the NFL when he gets interviewed, he listens. He listens to the questions. And like he looked at little Jeremiah and he was like, "That is a great question. I like the way you phrased that." And I bet you if you were around him for the full hour last night that he was on the dais, he would have really taken in questions instead of been on autopilot. I think he's got that gear.
Yeah. My worry with him would be is like, does he play into being the goofy, fun guy too much? And then that would get sick of people.
Right.
Also, if you are a player or a coach listening to this podcast, one of the best things you can do with dealing with the media, just anytime, great question. Great question and then answer. Even if you give a generic answer, they eat that shit up. I can't remember what coach it was, but I felt like it's Mike Kafka actually for the Giants offense coordinator. Never answers anything, but he says every question is a great question.
Funny.
But so yeah, Kittle. I wonder if Kittle would play too much into oh, I'm fun and goofy, but actually like maybe we want to listen to you break down football because like you said, he can probably do it just as good as anybody.
I think he can. I think he's so smart too, because I think he understands and executes the intricacies of line play while being able to probably explain routes and route trees and what everybody's trying to do as well as anybody. But we'll see. My guess is that they're going to both end up. But if we had one seat, we'd play that game. Finally, before we get out of here, some coaching news. Raheem Morris officially takes over in Atlanta. Dan Quinn, a former Atlanta Falcons coach, is now the new man in D.C. Which team's quarterback situation is more interesting moving forward?
I feel like the Commanders are the answer everyone would go for because they have the number 2 pick. There's going to be talks of them trading up to number 1 with the Cliff Kingsbury, Caleb Williams. But to me, it's the Falcons. Like, I'm so excited to see a quarterback drop into that situation with Bijan Robinson, who I love, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and I'm sure they'll add some more talent too. A good offensive line. That team's offense is a quarterback away from being a top 5 offense. Like, just even a good quarterback. If they go get Kirk Cousins, I'm predicting the Falcons to be top 5 in yards per game next year.
That's the thing, is that they can go so many different routes, right? Because they have not paid a quarterback down there since they got rid of Matt Ryan. So they could go Kirk Cousins. They have the 8th pick in the draft, which means that you're going to get not one of those top 3 dudes, but the next guy in line who might end up being good or might not. And then the jump from 8 to 2 or 3, if you love a guy, or heck, even 1, is not so monumental, right? Carolina went from 9 to 1, I believe, last year. Now, granted, they overpaid by adding in, sprinkling in the DJ Moore aspect of the draft. So not only did they give up a couple of 1s and a couple of 2s, I believe, but they gave up a guy who's a Pro Bowl receiver on top of it. But all of that could be in play for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and I think trading up is going to be hard because, one, I think there's teams ahead of them that would want to trade up, and I just don't know if any team's going to trade out of the top 3. But to me, I think the question goes like, okay, do they go free agency, like you said, with Kirk Cousins, or are they willing to wait till the second round and take a Michael Penix, or go JJ McCarthy, or whoever with their first round, or trade back or whatever. There's so many different avenues that would be a huge upgrade to them because I think they've had one of, if not the worst quarterback situation in football this past year. That would be an upgrade to them, but like how much? So that's where I would be in the Go give Kirk Cousins 2 years, fully guaranteed money, which I think makes this team good now, and you can try and fill that young quarterback void eventually in the future. And that's going to be the time when you got to start paying Pitts and Bijan and London and all these guys, so you could kind of restart on the rookie wage scale with when you're paying those cats.
And let's remember, you're in the worst division in the NFL. So they were in it. They were in the fight to win the division in Week 18.
Mm-hmm.
If they had won at New Orleans, I believe, and if Tampa had fallen at Carolina, then the Atlanta Falcons would have been your NFC South champs with like 7 wins or whatever.
And they could have they choked a lot of games too, right? Like they really actually could have done that, but they choked a lot of games away. I'm excited to see what Zach Robinson does with them as that OC.
I agree. All right, one more show then before we actually have kickoff of Super Bowl 58. So we're going to really do more of a deeper dive into kind of some X's and O's and get into all that stuff on Friday's show, but we cannot wait. In the meantime, be careful if you have to practice out at UNLV. We understand the surface is a little spongy. So
I don't understand that. What happened?
I don't think anything happened. I think it's UNLV's practice surface. It's not like UNLV is a top 25 team, and all of a sudden these great facilities. This is a huge advantage, by the way, or at least it could be for the AFC team, right? Because they get to practice at the new Raiders state-of-the-art facility out in Henderson. And the Niners have to go check out UNLV. Gulp.
That ain't right. They're the home team. They should get the Raiders facility.
They're not the home team.
Why are the Chiefs favored?
No, they alternate. So the AFC is the home team this year.
I didn't know that. I thought it was by best record.
Nope. It's an AFC NFC because it really has.
When did they start doing that?
Been doing it forever.
Really, I had no clue of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I got all sorts of. I got fun stat on Friday. I'm going to hit you with like a fun stat, whether it matters or not. Everything from like coin flips to uniform colors, all that sort of like to who's scoring first. I've got everything about the previous 57 Super Bowls just lined up for you.
Did the Chiefs win in their whites or their reds?
Well,
they won in their whites last year, and they won the reds the other one. Okay, so I think they got to stay in the reds because they beat the 49ers in the reds. A few years
but they lost to Tampa in the reds. They beat Minnesota in Super Bowl 4 in the reds. So it's a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like you got to go reds. Just keep the same aesthetic as 2019.
Got it. All right, well, we'll break it all down. Uniform colors, spongy surfaces at UNLV, and God knows whatever else. For our producer, Mikey, and for Bobby Skinner from the Talking Giants world, I am Chris Rose. We will see you Friday on Football Today.